Finger Lakes. If you ever have flown across the state of New York, or looked at the central western part of the state on Google Earth, you may have noticed a series of largely aligned and highly elongated lakes. These features happen to be known as the Finger Lakes, and have an interesting geologic origin. Each one of these deep lakes formed completely during the last 2 million years, and were carved not by water but instead by ice. Millions of years, they form deep valleys which have a notable V-shape. In contrast, when glaciers advance through a valley, their sheer mass leaves behind a broad and smooth valley with a notable U-shape. With this in mind, each of the Finger Lakes indeed has a U-shaped profile, and that is not simply due to the present lake level. Take for example Canandaigua Lake, as its definitive U-shaped profile goes on far south of where the lake ends, even to a spot 118 feet above its modern level. Additionally, there is an adjacent glacial valley lobe to the east, with the only reason it didn't also become the site of a lake being that it was not carved deep enough by glaciers to form a landform that was not only surrounded on all sides with higher terrain but also had no natural outlet. If we go back in time to this very spot 2.6 million years ago, there would have been no U-shaped valley but instead a far shallower and smaller V-shaped valley in its place. This ancient valley developed due to long-term drainage from the northern section of the Appalachian Plateau in what is now New York State flowing downhill towards the north. The associated drainages which formed carved away underlying rock, forming gentle slope valleys which may have been up to 150 feet deep in sections that were a third the width of their modern size. At what would eventually become Canandaigua Lake, this valley along with its associated stream was as much as 300 feet higher than the current lake level. Since the planet had a cooling planet been generally cooling since 15 million years ago, it reached a point where glaciers were eventually able to form on what was originally a green Greenland beginning around 3 million years ago. As the planet continued to cool, more glaciers developed across other sections of North America, until the Ice Age as defined today began 2.58 million years ago. As glacial and interglacial Pleistocene glaciers periods pulsed every approximately 100,000 years, the planet continued to get colder, allowing the glaciers in each cycle to potentially reach further and further away from the poles. It took until 2 million years ago before the first glaciers reached what would become the Finger Lakes, at which time they began flowing uphill. However, since gravity affected their motion, large masses of ice flowed towards the lowest point in the regional landscape, causing ice to begin carving away rock at 11 regional V-shaped valleys. As these glaciers advanced towards the south, they carved deeper and deeper into the surrounding rock, while also pulverizing the side of the same valleys. Glacial advance and retreat occurred more than 24 times over the following 2.57 million years, widening valleys to accommodate glacial movement by more than a mile in some areas, and remove up to 1,000 feet deep of underlying rock, even carving to below sea level in some spots. Once the last glacial period ended and the associated glaciers retreated from glacial sediment the area 10,000 years ago, they left behind more than 700 feet thick of glacial till, filling much of the original deep valley. This left behind numerous broad U-shaped valleys, which would eventually fill with water to form the modern Finger Lakes as the underlying glacial till had low porosity, meaning it could hold the water above it quite well. As a final note, I would like to thank my new YouTube channel member Jeffrey Olson for supporting this channel.